Welcome to the UP Notable Books Club, brought to you by the Upper Peninsula Publisher and Authors Association. Nikki Mitchell is a native of the Upper Peninsula of Michigan and has a BA in English writing with an emphasis on journalism from Northern Michigan University. Before becoming a full-time children's book author in 2019, she worked for the Iron County Reporter. As a mom of a child with ADHD and autism, she continues to write fantasy tales with disabled characters and characters with ADHD, anxiety, and autism. Working with young writers is also a huge passion of hers, and she hopes to help inspire a lifelong love for reading and writing with her stories.
Welcome, everyone, to our first installment of the UP Notable Books Book Club for Year 6, 2025. And I'm so delighted we've got Nikki Mitchell with us tonight, who is going to be talking about her book, Ellie and the Midwest Goodbye. But my name is Evelyn. I'm the director of the Crystal Falls Library. And as always, we kind of have Victor give us a few updates on what's going on with UPPAA. So take it away, Victor.
Thanks, Evelyn. My name is Victor Volkman. I am the current president of UPPAA, the Upper Peninsula Publishers and Authors Association. That's always a mouthful to get out of my mouth. It's going to be an exciting spring. Spring is the most exciting time for us because on May 17th, 2025, we have the spring conference, which all members of UPPAA are able to come to for the low price of absolutely nothing. So if you join us at UPPAA.org, it doesn't matter whether you've written anything or not. If you're interested in writing, we want you to be a member of our group. And also happening on May 17th will be the second Young Writers Storytelling Workshop, which is really our newest initiative, where we're reaching out to kids in grades 5 through 12 across the UP for a day of fun and writing, learning about and building their craft. Information on that you can find on our brand new website, storytellingworkshop.org. That's storytellingworkshop.org. It's got the brochure on there, and we're going to open registration up to the general public on March 17th. So that's coming up very, very, very soon. And there's only 25 spots available. We're teaching one set of students with 6th grade instructors, all kinds of aspects of how to write a better story, everything from plot, dialogue, character development, interesting locales and settings. And we're going into new directions where if you have an interest in, say, journalism or other subjects, we'll have special breakout sessions on that. So it's all very exciting. And if you go over to our main site, UPPAA.org, UPPAA.org, you can learn about all this stuff. And our calendar events is always on the right-hand side. Okay, thanks, Evelyn.
Yeah, thank you, Victor, for the updates. I know last year I went to the conference, and I hope to get there again this May, and it was a really great time. I learned a lot about writing, and it was, we've got so much talent here in the UP, which is really, I don't think people have any idea how smart we are. But speaking of smart, I'm so delighted to be introducing you tonight to Nikki Mitchell. She first walked into our library in Crystal Falls, was it 2020, Nikki?
Yeah.
In 2020, very excited, had just written and published her first book from her Eleanor Mason's literary series. I'm missing a few words, I think. And we were so happy to adopt that book into our collection and promote Nikki as much as we could. And we've seen her now through several books. She finished that series. She started another series. She's really big now in writing even children's books like Ellie and the Midwest Goodbye. And it is just a delight. I was so tickled when I saw her, because I know Nikki. So it was really neat to see her book get picked for a UP Notable Book. So without any further ado, take it away, Nikki Mitchell.
Thanks, Evelyn. Yep, you were the first librarian to ever take a chance on my books, and I shouted from the rooftops that Crystal Falls Library was where like it solidified the idea that being an author was real for me. And so yeah, so I appreciate that. Victor had asked me to read the PDF of Ellie and the Midwest Goodbye. So I have that um, shared. I don't know, can you all see? Okay. So I'm going to read this real quick, and then I have some background on how Ellie came about. So, let's see. Oh, look at the time, my dad says, slapping his knee. The goodbye ritual has started, and patience is key. I give hugs to my Nan and my great Uncle Joe, and put on my winter stuff, 'cause it's starting to snow. I tie up my laces and button my coat, but Gramps asked Dad about our new boat. We'll leave in a minute, Mom says, patting my head, but then turns and talks casseroles with Aunt Linda instead. Nan says to put on a scarf so I won't catch a cold, but Uncle Charlie starts a story that he's already told. Did I ever tell you about that one time? I sink down in defeat and my neck starts to sweat. I'm hot and I'm tired and I'm starting to fret. I see Mom at the door and I pull on my mitts, but she's quickly pulled aside by my first cousin Fritz. It's no use, I give up. We'll be here all night. I don't understand why leaving is such a big fight. It's been 20 minutes and I'm laying on the floor. I've hugged and I can hug no more. Dad shakes Graham's hand and heads for the door. I rush to his side, but he chats even more. I stand in defeat, kick off my boots and cry. We'll never ever leave because of the Midwest Goodbye. Dad comes over and tells me it's time to go, but we're quickly interrupted by Nan's best friend Flo. You've gotten so big, she says with a squeeze. Her perfume is so strong, I let out a sneeze. Achoo! We make it outside and I'm ready to cheer. Everyone waves and says, watch out for deer. I'm all buckled in and ready to leave, but Dad rolls down his window and talks to Cousin Steve. I close my eyes tight and wish for my bed while Miss Midwest goodbyes bounce around in my head. So that's the end of that. And then just a little bit about me. I am a mom to 2 kids. Are you able to see the screen?
Yeah, looks great.
Married to my college sweetheart. We actually went to high school together, and we're really good friends in high school. Got married while we were in college. And so we have Evelyn and Everett. And we also have our very own zoo. Up in the corner is our hound dog, Chevy. My husband got him to track deer and other animals he hunts, but he sniffs out arthritis better. So he has become sort of like a service dog to me. So he stays inside where it's nice and warm, and my husband hunts alone. And then the cat in the tie, that's Uski. The cat with the lightsaber, that's Bellatrix. And then down on the bottom is the image that I use for my business, Poison Apple Press. So although I know all of you know the Midwest Goodbye because we're from the UP, but I wanted to see what Urban Dictionary had to say about it. So it's the act of someone saying goodbye in such a way that extends the company's visit. And I thought that was a very precise way to put it. So I was born and raised in Iron River, Michigan. And I grew up in a really big family, extended family, I should say. I was the only child, but my grandpa was one of 8. And we always had get-togethers at my great-grandma's house. If you can see on the far right, that's me with my grandpa and his mom, my great-grandma, Evelyn. And she's what started the Midwest Goodbye for us, because she always said that if it had been 5 minutes since you hugged her last, she needed another hug goodbye. And so we would go up and play cards almost 3 to 4 times a week, all the time after dinner. And they would say, one more hand, get your stuff on, we're going to start saying goodbyes. And then 3 card games later, my cousins and I were asleep on the living room floor. We had given up, completely taken all of our stuff back off. And so the middle picture is my cousins and I up at my great-grandma's house. And then all the way over on the left is me with my mom and my grandparents, my aunt, my uncle, and my first cousins, because the Midwest Goodbye happens there as well. So that's kind of, I grew up with the Midwest Goodbye, and it just seemed normal until I went to college in Kenosha, Wisconsin. And while in Wisconsin, they still do the Midwest Goodbye, college is full of people who aren't from the area. And I remember we had a bunch of people over in my dorm, and one girl just was like, bye, and left. And I thought for sure for days that she was mad or annoyed or something. I did something wrong to have her leave that fast, because I've never had somebody just say goodbye and leave. And that's when my roommate had said, because she wasn't from, she didn't really know the Midwest either, goodbye either. And she was like, yeah, that's just what people do. And so that's when I discovered that that wasn't a normal way to say goodbye. And that girl was not mad at all. She just had to leave. So with all of that background, it's kind of been a joke in my family, and most of the people know and joke about it as well in our area. And I was actually supposed to take the year off of writing. I told my husband that I was burnt out because I had published so much since my first in 2020. And I was like, okay, I'm going to take the year off. I'm not going to publish anything. And then he had said that he was going to go to the grocery store, invited my daughter, and she was like, I am not going to the grocery store with you, because you do not just, you run into everybody and then you sit and talk forever, because you can't just say hi and bye. And so it popped into my head, because it was her perspective, it popped into my head how funny it would be for a children's book from the child's perspective of the Midwest Goodbye. And then all the memories from being a kid at my great-grandma's, and just my kids live it too, because my husband's family is also from Iron River, so we just never leave. And so I thought, okay. And the idea just started piling up in my head, and I couldn't get rid of it. And we were cleaning our Airbnb, and I sat down while I was waiting for laundry, and I wrote it in a day. And then my husband helped with the rhyming and the flow, and then I went home and I started illustrating it, and I think it took me like 2 days to do, because it was so fun. And I guess I had forgot that I was burnt out and wasn't supposed to be writing. So, but through writing this book, I've heard a lot of people's favorite stories of their Midwest goodbyes, or how their families have their own goodbye rituals. And so I'm always curious to hear other people's favorites. So if anybody wants to share any of theirs.
We have
No.
we have a quiet group. Oh,
Okay.
okay, here comes Sue.
I couldn't find my audio button. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I don't have a favorite, although, boy, I've been a part of a lot of Midwest goodbyes. They weren't natural to my family, because my mom's family's from the East Coast. My dad's family's from the South. but I was raised in the Midwest, so I learned from my husband's family and everything. But my least favorite, my mother's father, my granddaddy, was a widower, and he was dating a lovely woman. Her name was Hazel. My brother and I were like 5 and 7.5, that kind of thing. And every time we said goodbye to her, she pinched our cheeks so hard, the tears would come to your eyes. Oh, you're just so cute. And I was like, oh, Bobby, we've got to say goodbye to Hazel. Yeah, that was terrible. And so that's my least favorite Midwest goodbye.
So the situational anxiety was definitely there for you as a kid.
All the while when I was reading it, I guess it just reminded me, I guess my book would be a little bit rougher of a children's book, because it was always like you'd get all dressed and ready to go, and it's like, oh, one more beer. I remember my dad had one more beer, and then maybe another beer. So I mean, there was a lot of waiting around for that to happen with, our jackets on. So
Yep.
I could relate to that. I kept waiting for the beer to come into your story, though. That's what I kind of remember.
I have to confess that I lived in the lower peninsula. I was a troll for 19 years, and it's not quite like that down there. But, and when I think Midwest, I mean, I grew up in Northern Illinois, but for some reason, people in Illinois are always in a hurry. So this was a new experience in a sense for me. And maybe partly because I don't come from a really large family either. Although after I married my husband, he was the youngest of 5, and it was more like that in his family.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it made the difference that they were from Indiana, but but I love the book. It's really, and I have to confess I hadn't had a chance to look at it because I live out in here in Montana right now. And so I wasn't really sure exactly what it was going to be about. My first thought, since I have moved in and out of the Midwest 2 or 3 times, is that whether it was a moving away story. But this was really cute. And your illustrations were amazing. I couldn't do that.
Thank you.
Yeah, my favorite one, I didn't even notice until I saw it this time, was Cousin Gary sneaking up in the rearview mirror. That is amazing.
They
Well,
were a lot of
Nikki,
fun to drive.
Nikki, this is Carol Schultz. When I read the story, I did start chuckling because to this day, this is still how we do it. I grew up in Iron Mountain, and I just live a few miles from there. We still do this. You say goodbye 5 times in the inside, and then you walk them out to their car, and tell them goodbye 5 more times in different ways. So it was very cute, and very true.
I would just add on to what Carol just said, that I don't know about the 5 times, but a number of times. And then we would stand there and wave as they're driving away. We're waving at them.
Yeah.
Whether they're probably looking at us in the rearview mirror.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And that when you say that, tell people, now watch for deer, that is very true. Doesn't
Yeah.
matter if you're in town or out of town.
Mhm.
That's true in Montana too.
Nikki, somehow I missed, as I was reading your book a few weeks ago, that you had done the illustrations. I am blown away. These are fantastic. How did you get into this artistry, which is very, very professional? How did you start? That a kid thing?
Well, there's a lot of artistic talent in my family, especially on my mom's side. And And for a while as a kid, I wanted to be an artist. My uncle and my great uncles were always sketching and drawing and creating these gorgeous paintings that hung in like people's houses. My great grandma had paintings that were painted by people in my family all over her house. And I, at the time, I didn't really have the intense drive to do it. And so I didn't practice and I didn't really hone the skills for it. I spent most of my time reading and writing instead. And then my uncle and we've always been close. He actually did the map illustrations in all of my middle grade books. Seeing his artwork in my books, like it would be really cool to do my own. And so I started with a book that I wrote called Oscar's Noisy Dilemma. And I got an iPad and an Apple Pencil and downloaded the Procreate app. And I was watching YouTube channels by illustrators who use that program and learn how to use it and practiced and started writing and illustrating more. And then this one was my favorite one to do. I don't know if it's because I felt such a connection to it. But yeah, I guess just lots of practice, lots of drawing, lots of scrapping things. And I noticed that I'm able to work better on the iPad because I have psoriatic arthritis, and so my hands swell and get sore. And when I'm working with actual watercolors or actual art, it's hard to start and then stop and come back to it. And with digital art, I'm able to do that and nothing gets messed up, nothing is dry and then gets weird things. So it was really accessible for me, I guess. So yeah.
I'm so impressed. I'm just so impressed. Well, I don't want to take up all your time with questions, but years ago I had a good friend who has passed away, but she did children's books and she illustrated some of hers. And she worked with a storyboard. So she would write the book and then she would divide it into, in those days it used to be like 24 pages or whatever, divisible by 4 or something. I don't know. And then have, of course, this was pre-computer. So she'd have this great big thing on the wall and divided it into double pages and did a storyboard to be able to put the words where she wanted them compared with her illustrations. And if she was going to hire an illustrator, she would just do stick figures to show where she wanted them to be. Well, she did better than stick figures. That's what she called them. But they were really good. Did you use a storyboard?
No, I do a lot of planning and plotting mentally. Like I can picture it in my mind how I want it. And
Okay.
so I do it I do it that way. And then one of the illustrators on YouTube has like brush packs and illustration packs, and she's a professional children's book illustrator that you can purchase. And I did, and it actually has a blank set of pages that you can import your pages to in the program itself, and it has the correct like margins and bleeds and everything like that. And then so it just stays in Procreate, and I can save it as a PDF and upload it straight to KDP and other printers straight from that program. So I do everything in Procreate. But yeah, I see it in my head and I'm like, okay, that's how it's gonna work. Which is a space saver, I guess.
Oh yeah.
How did you, I'm glad you're talking about the illustrating. One question I had was, how did you get that pink, the coat and the hat? It's very textured. How did that come to be?
So Procreate has different brushes. And it's like if you're using like watercolor, it'll come on as watercolor, and you can actually use different paper textures as well, so that when you paint on it, it'll blend like you want it. And so this one was it was I think I used the crayon brushes actually. And so it gave it that texture.
That's
And then just
really cool.
layering. So yeah, the brush does it. I just pick the brushes and the size of the texture that I want, and do blending and things like that with different colors to make it look like that.
Yeah, it's very realistic.
Thanks. I do have, and if anybody else has any questions, like pop up and ask, I don't mind answering. But I do have a little bit about the writing career, which might answer some questions too. That's the first Author Palooza event that I was ever at.
Oh, I don't think we can see your screen.
Oh, am I not sharing again?
Please share again, sorry.
Okay,
Okay.
yeah,
I hit
let's
the wrong button.
reshare.
See, share. Share.
Oh, there we go. It's
Okay.
working now.
So that's the first Author Palooza event that I was ever at. With the Nightshade Forest. It was the only book that I had out. So I went to NMU, graduated from there in 2011 with a degree in English writing. I minored in journalism because even in middle and high school, when I wanted to be an author, everybody told me that that was not a career choice worth spending what I did in student debt to go after. So I stuck journalism on the end because I'm like, well, I can write for a newspaper. And so I had pushed creative writing completely out of my mind. In fact, I had taken creative writing classes at Northern, and I was like, this is just so that I could have my degree. I wasn't anything that I planned to do with the information that I had learned, which is a shame because if I could go back now, I probably would have paid attention a little bit more. But so I graduated and we moved back to Iron River, and I started working for the Iron County Reporter in 2013, and up until recently still worked there as a stringer for special events. And then in 2019, my husband and I bought a subscription to Masterclass where you could take classes from industry professionals, and there was one on there from R.L. Stine, who wrote Goosebumps books, and I still have my collection of Goosebumps books. And so I'm like, okay, well, that looks like fun. So I'll just take it. And that spark that I had back in high school ignited again. And I was walking back home from an interview that I did for the Reporter. And Eleanor's story in Nightshade Forest popped into my mind, and I tried to push it away, and Eleanor was relentless. And so I sat down and I started writing in October of 2019. June 2020, I published Nightshade Forest. And I had, like I said, my first event at the Author Palooza. I remember being so nervous that I was not going to sell any books and nobody would want Nightshade Forest. And that was not the case because Evelyn does a fantastic job at bringing people in and just celebrating local authors. And then I joined UPPAA in 2020 after Evelyn had told me about it for local support. I didn't even know that it existed. Went to the first picnic, and Larry, I think Larry's here tonight. Larry was the first person to come up to my family and I and introduce us and welcome us, or introduce himself and welcome us. And my kids still remember. So now they look for Larry whenever we go to the picnics. So it's been a huge support. And then there's an international award called the Wishing Shelf Book Awards. It's set in the UK, but it's open internationally and it's open to every genre out there. It's read by your market readers. So in my case, it's read by kids in primary schools, and I think they do like 12 primary schools, where the kids they print off the books. You don't have to send them physical books. You send them the PDF and they print them out for these kids, and the kids actually write the feedback. And Nightshade Forest was a red ribbon winner. So it didn't make it into the finalists, but the kids really enjoyed it. And so it was given a red ribbon. And then Season of Dragons is part of a newer middle grade book series that I'm writing about a main character with ADHD. And I had Brandy, I met her in UPPAA as well. She did the audiobook narration for Season of Dragons, and it was a finalist in the Wishing Shelf Book Awards. We were beat out by the 12 Fartaceous Days of Christmas, which as soon as I heard that title, I knew that the kids were going to pick it because it's about a farting Santa. So, I mean, my kids would have picked it too. So. But so that was pretty cool. I have Brandy and I with the book, and they sent us a gold medal. This was the second year only that they did the audiobooks though, and so they hadn't gotten it yet to where the narrator and the author get, so we share the medal. We share custody of it. Every time we see each other, we switch it out, and she'll use it and I'll use it. And now a board member on UPPAA, which has been really eye-opening as to even more stuff that the organization does for writers. So if you're not part of that and you want to be part of that, if you're a writer, I would suggest it. And yeah, so I guess that's all I have for my stuff, but I'm open to any questions anybody has about Ellie or any of my writing.
I just want to give one compliment. If you haven't read Nikki's book, How to Catch an Emily, I think you'd really enjoy it. It's very good for people who live in Iron County because it's about this little girl who I believe was Nikki when she was little. Am I right? Okay. Yeah. So it's a little girl, and is it your grandpa who takes you fishing? Grandpa takes her fishing to Bass Lake and they get bass. And then they go to Lake Emily, and they catch Emily's. And I just love that one. I think it's so cute. So that's kind of another fun picture book if you've got people in your life that could use a picture book, which a lot of us do. That would make a good gift as well. So does anyone else have, I mean, when we have a book like this one, sometimes it's hard to get a whole hour's discussion, and that's fine. We don't have to discuss it too long, but while we've got Nikki here, does anyone have any other questions or comments for her?
I do.
Okay.
I read the first dragon book, and actually I think I read the next one too. Have you got two of those? Not.
Nope. Season of Dragons is book one. The second one comes out in June.
All right. Well, I read it. I was so impressed with it, and so impressed that you are writing about and for children who don't fit in the box in our school systems. And I'm guessing that many of us tonight didn't fit in the box in our school systems. And I married into a family of ADHDs. Oh, crumb. It's a whole new thing. It's like going to a foreign country because the energy levels and the way the minds work. And at first it was very frustrating for me because in my family, we all sat and read books. That was what we did for entertainment. Or we went out in the woods, and my dad taught us how to track and how to walk quietly and how to walk softly on the earth. And those were wonderful things. And my husband's family did do the woods lore too, but I had to learn to appreciate the gifts of people who were in hyper mode most of their waking hours. And when they did sit down, they sat down and then they went, and then we're up again and off race to the races again. And I wish there would have been books like this for me, because it would have educated me at a much younger level. And of course, classroom of 40 kids, one teacher when I was growing up in the little town of Pickford. And some of the kids were hyper energetic, ADHD, lost track of things, had incredible gifts as far as being able to have a lot process in their mind at the same time, but didn't understand where they were coming from, and sometimes saw them punished for who they were, not what they were doing. And wow, thank you for writing this. Thank you for doing this, because this touches a lot of lives, and not just the people, the parents of today and students of today, but grandpas and grandmas who are struggling to understand grandchildren, or teachers who are struggling to understand their students. I think you're giving a tremendous gift to the world. And I just fell in love with that sweet kid in that book.
Yeah, it was important. My son has ADHD and autism. And so I wanted to make sure that he could see himself in main characters in fantasy, especially, because I felt like you see it a lot in children's picture books, especially today, but you don't see it a whole lot in middle grade fantasy. And middle grade fantasy is what attracts young readers, and a lot of times instills a lifelong love for reading. And so if they don't see themselves as a main character, or they see themselves as a side character or barely mentioned, then they're less likely to feel what people who see themselves in main characters are missing out on. And I didn't want my son to grow up without books where he could see himself in. So I wrote it very much for him and kids like him. But the whole time, I mean, my kids are my alpha readers. So I read my manuscript to them after I do a few self edits. I read it to them first. They're the first ones to hear it at bedtime during the day. They ask the good questions. And then they come up with a lot of ideas too. So it's definitely a group effort here in the Mitchell house.
I really appreciate that. I have a son who has Tourette's and OCD and is bordering on bipolar, and you're giving me some thoughts about how can I approach this. I wrote a fictionalized memoir about, being his mother. and it was interesting because when I had him read the book before it went to the publisher for the final draft, and I was worried what he would think, and his only comment was, "Hey, that was a good read." Well, he's in his 40s now, but he still has a lot of issues, and one of them is that he won't take meds, um, and he can't focus well enough to read. So the fact that he actually read the book said something. But yeah, you're making me realize that I need to maybe carry on with this, and I can appreciate the burnout feeling, because the book that I'm finishing up now has taken me almost 4 years to write, and it's a historical fiction. So, and I had to read over a dozen books about Irish history to make sure I was getting it all right. Because my ancestors came during the potato famine, but that's coming in the spring. And
Good.
Oh, Evelyn, I wish I could come to Authorpalooza.
Yeah, we have
But
that every Christmas. It's the bad thing about Authorpalooza is it's the second Saturday in December, which is always dicey weather.
oh
But
yeah, yeah.
we get
And I'm out in Montana where it can be just as dicey, and there's a whole lot of weather between you and me. Yeah.
it's nice, and Nikki too has we've had her. I have a tween book club at our library, and we read her first book of Season of the Dragons, and we also read the first book of Nightshade Forest, the Nightshade Forest book of
Yeah.
Eleanor Mason's. So it's kind of fun, you know, to have tweens read her, and then she's come and talked to them about her book and taught us some neat things like how to make maps using rice and all kinds of fun stuff. So
That's cool. You know,
we're lucky to have Nikki. She's a good writer.
you actually have that book I was talking about, Far from Magnolia Drive, is in your library. So if anybody out there is interested in taking a look at it, talk to Evelyn or contact me. I'm a UPPAA member.
Yeah, we can definitely get you that book. Yeah. Any other comments or questions for our Nikki before we sign off tonight?
Yeah. Really appreciate, Nikki, all of how you shared about the technology of your illustration, because that's way beyond me right now. Yeah. What was the program that you were using called?
It's called Procreate, and it's actually surprisingly inexpensive. The expensive part is the iPad and the Apple Pencil, but if you have that, it's I think it's like a $5 program.
Wow.
And that's you don't need, it's not like a subscription price, that's it. And then you can buy brushes and texture packs from illustrators that create them to make them easier for you to use, depending on your style. But you can illustrate the entire book with the in-app brushes.
Wow. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for that. And Anne had her hand up. Anne, did you want to ask a question?
I just wanted to compliment Nikki. She always does such a great job on her presentations. And the one she did at the Young Storytellers last spring was amazing. So,
it was about character writing. And that's one thing that really comes through with Nikki's books, all of her books, is she creates a good, memorable character without using an overabundance of words, which I think is kind of remarkable, you know.
That's a gift.
It is a gift. It is, because it's just about finding those just specific words that can build the character in the reader's mind, and you're very good at that. Just like that coat. That coat makes the whole book. I don't know. I love that pink coat. So good job. Yeah.
I'd like that. You should do one, Nikki, on arrivals, not goodbyes. Because in my Irish family, the Irish side of the family, we'd have pools betting on when people would show up.
Oh, really? Like late, early?
Oh, always late. Always late.
I love it.
Yeah.
I have a question if it's not too late.
No, go ahead, Sharon.
I'm sorry I joined late. I remember the first time I met Nikki. She was a presenter, okay, at, what was it, 29, was it the 2019 conference or 28 or 2020, one of those conferences, the UPPAA, whatever we call it, conference. And the thing that really impressed me, I don't remember the book or the series that you had, but you had tea, I think you had bookmarks. That I found that incredibly engaging. And I wonder, do you still continue to do that? Because it really, there was quite a few people in that presentation, and it really brought everybody in and piqued our interest even more. And congratulations on, you know, on everything that you're doing. Sorry, I missed the first part about how you create some of these characters, but they are fascinating.
Thank you.
So,
yeah, I think that was the 2021 UPPAA when I did on merchandise for your books to sell.
that's right. That's right.
I don't remember what year it was. Maybe Victor does. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either, but it was the merchandising aspect. That's right. And that was some wonderful tips that you had. And I wondered if you still do that.
I still do the bookmarks. I don't do the tea because the woman who did the tea, it was a small bookish tea company out of Oregon, actually, and she ended up closing up shop because of the cottage food laws in her city had changed and made it almost impossible, and finding a place to rent space to where she could make and package her teas was too much. So I don't do the teas, but I do I still do stickers and bookmarks. And then for the upcoming book, I have pirate treasure loot bags.
Wow.
So
I'll say more about that.
what was that?
Say more about the pirate treasure loot bags.
Well, An Unlucky Companion is the second book in the Magic Shoebox series. So that comes out on Friday the 13th in June of this year. And Ichabod, the main character, for those of you who have read Season of Dragons, Ichabod is on his way home. He's got his permission slip. He's not making any stops because he knows that if he puts his permission slip in for the end of the year field trip, he puts it in his backpack, it is gone forever. And unfortunately, he gets distracted by this shiny spot down by the marina, and it happens to be a magic veil hiding an actual pirate ship. And so permission slip goes in his backpack, and on the ship he goes. And it's a bunch of superstitious pirates, Captain Mustache and his band of very superstitious pirates. And so I thought it'd be a whole lot of fun to have pirate loot bags to sell with my books. And so I have these little, I'm going to order these little satin bags, black bags that have actual and they're metal pirate coins. So they will make the clinking noise. So I'm really excited. And then I do recipes with these books. So in Season of Dragons, there's a grandma dragon and she makes jam, and there's this sweet moment between Ichabod and Gran with her jam. And so I made recipe cards with Gran's jam so that families could make an easy recipe together as part of discussing the book. And so I thought it'd be fun to continue with every book in this series to have a recipe. So we're going to have Charles's quick pickle for An Unlucky Companion. So by the time that my series is done, these kids will have a whole stack of recipes in the book. So that's I guess that's the main thing that I'm doing, but the pirate loot bags are going to be fun.
Yeah.
It's very creative.
Very creative.
Yeah.
What is your background there tonight? I'm kind of curious.
That's actually my wallpaper in my dining room.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
I thought
it was
something from that Procreate that you made.
No, it's actually my wallpaper on my wall. We just moved to Ishpeming in August. We bought a mobile home up here, and we just moved in after Christmas though because it was a lot of work. But this is a very hideous wall, and there was no way of straightening it out. So I'm like, I'm just gonna get wallpaper, and I kind of fell in love with the books. So yeah, it's wallpaper.
Appropriate.
Amazing.
Oh, neat. Yeah, well, I can't thank you enough for kicking off our year. Next month, we're reading Lumberjack, a UP notable classic book, and we will be speaking with the granddaughter of the author. And your local library should have it. No, that's a different one. I'm talking to my mom there for saying that one's coming up a little bit later. Your local library should probably have a copy of it, or of course you could get it online or through a local bookseller. But I think we'll all enjoy reading a classic book. And yeah, thank you for joining tonight. Thank you, Nikki. I do hope you keep writing. So I'm looking forward to see more work from you as the years unfold. So thank you all for coming on tonight, and we'll see you next month.
You've been watching the UP Notable Books Club, brought to you by the Upper Peninsula Publisher and Authors Association. To join or for more information, please visit us at www.upaa.org or www.upnotable.com.